Hey everybody, welcome to the Bet Like No One's Watching podcast. I'm your host, John Sullivan. Some of you may know me as Buffalo66. Some of you may know me from my Twitter page, Buffalo Hold'em, or some of the other podcasts I'm involved with. And today, I am pleased to announce that going forward, this podcast is going to be distributed by Fear the Beard Media. You can find them on Twitter at FearBeardMedia, no the in there. Check out their other offerings. They do a bunch of different podcasts. So now, my podcast will be available on several platforms, including iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, etc. Of course, all of my podcasts that I'm involved with are always available in the original form on my YouTube channel, which is also called Buffalo Hold'em. So in case you want to check out my archives, feel free to do so. And let's get started. Before I get into the grist of this week's episode, I just want to talk a minute for the new listeners. Just want to tell you about what this is all about. And you know, I call this my personal sports gaming podcast. As a former mediocre poker player, former high-volume daily fantasy sports player and affiliate, and as an experienced sports bettor, I discuss issues and experiences in those areas. I also talk about my sports betting picks. I offer up all my picks for free. I review my recent wagers, preview upcoming games. I also talk about anything sports related that strikes my fancy. If there's some sports topic that I feel like I got to give a hot take on, I'll do it. Always looking for guests. I guess I'm not that popular a guy, but anybody's interested, let me know. So anyway, I try to do one podcast each week, about 15 to 20 minutes, to give you a time-friendly listen and give you ideas, strategies, or opinion that can help you make good sports-related decisions. So I hope you listen through, and I hope you like it. So let's get right to the meat of the week, and we're going to talk about what a horrible betting week I had last week. I went 0-2 in CFL last weekend. I'm now sitting at a 4-game losing streak, my longest of the year. That puts me at 13-9-1 on the CFL season. Montreal was basically a dumpster fire for me. Their top wide receiver, Deron Carter, didn't like the quarterback change, and he basically took the game off. He acted like a little bitch, excuse my language, but he didn't man up and even try in this game. And they've had, since that game last week, they've had issues in practice this week, and I'm going to get into the CFL stuff later, but that was a dumpster fire for me. And then I had Hamilton on Sunday, and they were leading. I think I had a -6.5. They were leading in the third quarter, but they let the game get away from them. I think a lot of people are going to be on the new Toronto quarterback, but believe me, he is not somebody you want to bet on very often. Anyway, I'm hoping for a bounce-back week. If you do like CFL, I have another podcast that's dedicated exclusively to the Canadian Football League. It's called the Daily Fantasy CFL Podcast. And again, it's available on both Fear the Beard Media and at my channel, Buffalo Hold'em. I should have another episode up by tomorrow. So let's move on to NFL. And week 1 was last weekend, and I started out 1-2 on the week. I mentioned last week that I picked 2 games against quarterbacks making their first NFL start. One with the Giants. There was just way too much money on the Cowboys, too much hype there, although it was a close game. I had the Browns +4, and they've browned it up, and they lost handily to Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz looked good for Philly. I'm not sold on him yet. He hasn't faced quality competition, so I'm looking for spots to bet against him. If you remember last year, Marcus Mariota came in, and he had 4 touchdowns in his first game in the league, and everybody was all hyped about that, and then he had a pretty mediocre season after that. And I even think he was pulled in a couple of games. So I expect the same thing to happen. There's going to be growing pains there. So I lost also on the Texans over. I don't want to say that was a bad beat. I needed 7 points scored in the last half of the fourth quarter, and it didn't happen. The Texans were able to control the tempo and run out the clock. The Bears were just not able to move the ball in big plays, so they were shut down. So that was, it was a tough loss, but it wasn't. I don't think it was a bad play. I'm glad I didn't chase on the Monday night games because I was on the wrong side of both. I still am high on the Redskins this season. I said they were a good futures pick. They looked unprepared for the Steelers, although Pittsburgh got some very fortuitous bounces in that game. That one touchdown pass that bounced off somebody, and some fumbles lost, and things like that. The Rams game I really didn't even watch, but I was shocked at how poorly they performed in San Francisco. I don't really think the Niners are much better than they were last year, but they're going to score more points with Chip Kelly. So look at the totals with their games. But that could be a long season in LA. We'll see. I mean, Jeff Fisher is the king of 7-9, so you got to think he's going to go 7-8 the rest of the way. So on to this week. I have 3 plays locked in for week 2, and I'm going to start with the Thursday night game, which I'm recording on Thursday. So tonight I'm taking the Bills at Pick'em. I expected a lot of late money to come in on Buffalo. As I'm recording this, they're still a 1-point dog, but I think that could change by game time. You've got home opener. You've got a revenge motivation game for Rex Ryan. You got 2 teams looking at starting out the AFC East at 0-2. Neither one wants that. I like the Bills' quarterback mobility. I think they have a better pass defense. Revis looked horrible for the Jets last week. I wonder if he still got it or not. We'll see. But obviously the team that loses this game is going to have some self-inflicted wounds and penalties or whatnot. And I just, the Bills at home are pretty solid. Even under Rex, they've been really good at home. So I'm going there. And then on Sunday, I took the Saints in an early game, plus 4.5 at the Giants. No, I don't think there's any question New Orleans has the better offense here. And I expect the Giants, even though they hinted that they were going to be an up-tempo team this year, to run first against the Saints. And I don't know if I would bet the total in this game, but I like the Saints to cover. I don't think the Giants are the type of team that is going to be a come-from-behind team very often this year. They got an easy opponent in week 1, I thought. Like I said, Dallas was pretty overhyped. The Giants, there's going to be some transitional pains there too. But I think if the Saints can get out by 10 or 14 points, that game is going to go their way. But I certainly like them to, if they get down 10 points, I certainly like them to close it to within a field goal. So I'm taking Saints plus the points there. Now, moving on to the night game on Sunday night, I took the Packers minus 2.5 at Minnesota. Vikings passing game was just a huge question mark this past week, with the quarterback situation. They didn't even really have any deep targets. Kyle Rudolph is being completely minimized with the lack of a passing attack. The Corell Patterson is getting handoffs instead of passes. I just, until they show me something, you got to like Green Bay in the spot. It's a chalky pick, but I like it at less than -3. I actually could have had it at -2 today at -115, but I decided to take -2.5 at -105. That's more, I didn't feel like it was worth the juice for that half a point. So those are my 3 picks I have for NFL so far. If I have any other picks, you can find them on my Twitter page at Buffalo Hold'em. I always post all my picks for free. And I also put my betting records on my Twitter page at the end of every month. So you can check those out if you're a first-time listener. And then finally, for the last topic of the day, is the DFS experiment that I talked about in last episode. For those of you that didn't listen, I played 4 $5 head-to-heads on FanDuel against 4 different daily fantasy pros, and wanted to see if I still had any chops. And I just, as an experiment, I wanted to see how it would go. And of course, as predicted, I lost all 4. But what I want to point out before I get into the details of that is that information is valuable. I paid $20 and I didn't win any money back, but I got valuable information. If you're going to be engaged in daily fantasy, if you can play the best players in the game, I'm not saying these 4 are specifically the best players, but if you can play the top players in the game for $5 and get access to their lineup, their cash lineup, that's valuable information. It's a lot cheaper than signing up for any stat service or tout service. So on to this. I lost all 4. I got 4 points that I want to talk about here. Their lineups were all very similar, and their scores ranged from 129 to 156 FanDuel points. They all had the same core of 4 players: Dak Prescott, Spencer Ware, Antonio Brown, and Jordan Reed. And then 3 other players were on 3 of the 4 rosters: Seattle Seahawks defense, Julio Jones, and D'Angelo Williams. This was a Thursday start, so I was a little surprised no one took a chance on Gronk, who of course didn't play, but at that time he was considered questionable. He wasn't considered out. So my lineup underperformed, especially in the TD department. I only scored 100 points, and my most expensive player, Todd Gurley, only put up 4.7 points. I think he had like 50 yards rushing or something like that. I faded Ware on purpose, and he had like almost 30 FanDuel points. I knew everybody was going to take him, so I tried to pick 2 high-floor running backs. I thought that would pay off, and I went with a value quarterback of Derek Carr, who only had 1 touchdown, but he did have a good day. And then I picked Baltimore defense, who I knew was going to have a good day against the Bills. They only gave up 7 points. It was the second lowest scoring defense of all the NFL teams that week, but only scored me 6 FanDuel points. And then my big blunder was taking Jared Cook at tight end, who only got 2 targets. I read that he was going to be the slot receiver for Green Bay, and he was going to be an integral part of their deep game, but no. So don't believe everything you read. So that was my risk, and I knew that was a risky pick, but and I was willing to take, under 5 points from Cook, but I needed points from the other places. I don't understand why my opponents stacked Antonio Brown and D'Angelo Williams in the cash games. Now, I understand why they do that. Somebody would do that in a GPP. But are they trying to increase the projected floor of their projected cash game total? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe somebody can tell me or on Twitter or something. But it paid off for them because each of those players had 2 TDs. But my thinking is, if you're going to stack those 2 players, why don't you put in Roethlisberger? It doesn't. I don't know. I don't get it. But it paid off for them. Since lineups were so similar, the question I wanted to ask publicly is, do I think they colluded in any way? And my answer is very unlikely and highly likely no, they did not collude at all. They basically had 6 weeks to prepare with these prices for this week, so not surprising the value plays were so obvious, and there were a lot of similar value plays. My strategy was trying to be different, and it didn't work out. So what now? I'll still make FanDuel lineups, and when I do, I'll post them on my Twitter. I don't really feel like throwing that money away every week against these guys. It would feel nice to beat them, and if I played them enough, I certainly would beat them a few times. But in past years, when I played fantasy every week during NFL, I averaged about 4 weeks a season where I just stunk and my lineup stunk, whether it's variance or mistakes or what. But the other 12, 13 weeks were usually pretty good. So let's see if I can put up some good scores in the next few weeks and see if this is just a fluke or if I'm really just old and decrepit and not with it anymore. So that was my DFS experiment, and I'm still going to put a lineup together because I think it's fun to do that. And I'll post that on my Twitter feed if it happens. So that's it for this episode. I try to do it quick and easy so you can get a quick listen on your way to whatever you're doing. So thanks for sticking it out, checking me out, and I like to leave with the same tagline every time. Until next time, bet like no one's watching. Take care.